Our next guest on the Meinl Radio podcast is Jharis Yokley. Jharis was raised in St. Louis, Missouri. And by the way, I quiz him about that city at the beginning of the podcast. I'll give it away, but he aces the quiz. Jharis was educated at Berklee in Boston. And these days, he's been living in New York City. Jharis is extremely adept at many styles: jazz, R&B, funk, and rock, just to name a few. Really, he's a one-of-a-kind drummer. He's got pocket and technique for days, but most importantly, he's incredibly musical. We've had Jharis in Nashville a couple of times over the years to shoot video content with us, and he always impresses me with his unique approach to the drum set. Jharis is a calm and centered person, and he's very easy to be around and to work with. Those attributes, along with his depth of musicianship, are really what keeps him constantly working. For anyone listening that wonders what it may take to be a professional drummer, pay close attention to Jharis during the podcast. He has a lot to share. All of it is great. Now, on to the podcast. I'd like to welcome everybody into the Meinl Radio podcast. Today, we've got one of the most mellow, laid-back, and sweet dudes of all time, not to mention a monster drummer, Jharis Yokley. Jharis, what's up, dude?
Hey, Chris, man. Thanks for having me. I like that intro. That was great.
Dude, every word of it's true. Literally, you're like, it's so funny. I mean, you're like Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde because you're so like just laid back and easygoing. And I can't even imagine that you would have any semblance of a temper. But then on the drums, you just like completely go off. It's great.
Yeah, man. That's my vibe pretty much, except with video games on Call of Duty. If you want to see me rage in person, watch me play Call of Duty.
You're the guy that's like cursing in front of everybody and screaming.
Exactly. I get so upset. But this is a happy time. Let's not get upset right now.
Okay. All right. Okay, so you're a native of St. Louis, Missouri, correct?
Correct.
All right. So I'm going to throw a few trivia questions at you about St. Louis, as it was a major city in the early years of music in the 20th century. Like in the United States, and it has a long and vibrant musical history. So we're going to see just what kind of a native you really are.
Ooh, okay.
Which W.C. Handy song was the most recorded blues song of all time?
Oh my God. What does it start with? Can I get a hint? Or is that too easy if I get a hint?
That's too easy. My hint, my answer to you just now should have been the hint.
So it has to be like St. Louis Blues or something.
That's it, St. Louis Blues.
Are you serious?
I'm totally serious.
Amazing.
All right, man. You're 1 for 3 right now. So let's see. Which rock and roll pioneer was from St. Louis?
Oh, Chuck Berry. That's easy.
Dude, okay. All right. I didn't say I was going to make it hard. I just wanted to see if you were the real deal.
Yeah, fun fact. Actually, I was playing in the band Bella and Lily. We opened for Chuck Berry on his very last show.
Whoa.
Yeah, man. It was crazy.
Where was his last show?
What's this? Oh, you're not from St. Louis. I was going to ask you. It's a spot called, I think, Blueberry Hill, maybe. Down in the basement. We opened for him, and it was great.
Nice. Fats Domino would have been proud.
Ooh, yeah, for sure.
So, last question. This is a more modern question, so I'm sure it's probably easy. Which rapper from St. Louis had 4 number 1 hits in the early 2000s?
Oh, that's got to be Nelly.
Yep. Dude, you are from St. Louis. It's
I am
real.
from St. Louis. Let's do it. Woo!
Awesome. All right. You passed the test. So, I'm curious. I've never asked you this before. Which drummer made you fall in love with the drums and made you want to play?
Dennis Chambers, by far, is my all-time favorite drummer. Like, that's the most famous guy answer, but probably the real answer is my cousin, RJ. He was my first muse on the drum set. He showed me so much. But the answer for everybody that knows drumming is Dennis Chambers.
Well, okay, so who was the first person you ever saw play drums where you went, whoa, was it Dennis or was it RJ?
That is a great question. Probably RJ, because I found out about Dennis when I was probably in the 6th grade, and I've been playing since I was 3, so long before that. Yeah.
And so what, RJ... Cousin. Okay, now wait, did RJ have... I seem to remember you telling me you started drumming in church at a crazy young age, right?
Exactly, yep, 3 years old.
Yeah, okay, so did you see RJ play in church, or were you over at his house one day and there was a kit set up, or how'd that work?
I don't really remember the specifics, but I mean, it has to be somewhere in church because he was always playing. My uncle was a pastor, and he would always play drums there. And he's probably the first drummer, one of the first drummers I've seen live in person. Him and my other cousin, Melvin, he plays bass now, but he was a drummer too. I have a lot of musicians in my family, so that's where the inspiration comes from.
That's awesome. And then with Dennis, so when you saw Dennis for the first time, was it on like an old VHS tape of his, or was it like did you hear him or see him or both, or how was it?
So I saw him, my first drum teacher, Ron Carr in St. Louis. He introduced me to the website drummerworld.com, famous website. And Dennis Chambers was one of the first guys that he showed me. And I was blown away immediately because I didn't know a human being could move that. Because I had never seen a professional drummer, like any of the VHS tapes or anything, until 6th grade. And Ron Carr showed me Dennis Chambers. I don't remember the exact video, but I just remember going like, oh my God. First of all, his drum set was huge to me at the time with the 3 rack toms and the 2 floors. And I was like, man, he was going so fast doing the crossover moves and everything. And from then on, he was my favorite drummer.
Yeah, the first time I ever got hip to him, there was a John Scofield record. I feel like I talked to somebody else on another podcast about this, but anyway, first time I ever really got hip to him was this John Scofield record called, I think it was called Pick Hits.
Oh, nice.
And just insane. The guy he was just kind of like at that same time as dudes like Weckl were back then, where they were just blowing people's minds.
Exactly.
And, you know, something I liked about Dennis was he always wore that baseball hat, but he wore a baseball hat that didn't have any logos on it. It was just plain.
Yeah, that's the style.
I just thought that was cool. I was like, dude, that's right. You're not like, no logos, just like hat.
Yeah, and then playing a crazy drum solo while blowing bubbles with his bubble gum was the craziest thing. And he's like the coolest guy ever. Like, man, yeah, Dennis, yeah, amazing.
Have you ever met him?
Yeah, actually, I met him a few years ago, 10 years ago, actually, which is crazy, at the Panama Jazz Festival. And just last week, I saw him play with Oz Noy here in New York at the Iridium Jazz Club. And I was fangirling so hard. I felt bad because as a musician, you know what it feels like when random people come up to you and like, oh, I'm a big fan. And I was doing the exact same thing to Dennis. And I knew it was happening while I was doing it. I know he's like, who is this guy? I was just like, hey, man, I'm a big fan. And he was like, all right, man, yeah, nice to meet you. And I'm like, all right, cool. And I just stood there for like 5 minutes, just not saying anything. I didn't know what to say. And then I was like, all right, man, well, I'm going to go. Nice to meet you.
I mean, dude, but that's the thing. It's like not knowing what to say. Actually, I'm going to get deep here. It actually says so much because you're so like in awe of this person that's meant so much to you creatively.
Yeah, and, true.
I mean, being tongue-tied in front of a person, you know, if they're perceptive enough. I mean, at the moment, he's probably just like trying to chill and get his bearings after getting off the bandstand and whatnot. But like, if they're perceptive enough, they should realize, man, this guy really cares. Like, he cared enough to walk up and say hello, and now he doesn't know what the hell to say to me.
True. That's a very nice way of thinking about it. Hopefully, Dennis got that from my encounter with him.
I mean, at least it doesn't sound like he was rude to you. So that's
no, he was awesome. Yeah, that's a great thing. Yeah, he's very nice.
Yeah, I mean, dude, I've met one of my idols once before, drumming idols, and I really, really wished I hadn't met him.
Oh, man.
I won't name any names. It's not worth it. But then, you know, but conversely, I've met another couple of my drumming idols, and both of them were outstanding. Just the sweetest, nicest people. So that kind of made up for it.
Oh, there you go. That's good.
And, well, fast forward a little bit, and I'm going to jump around here a bit, but I'm curious. So I think the first time that you and I ever spoke on the phone was when you were a finalist in the Guitar Center Drum-Off, right?
Yeah, I think that's it. I know you sent me a message. I don't know if we talked on the phone, but you sent a message with the symbol that I still have. Actually.
Right. Yeah. Yeah, that's back when Meinl wasn't actually a sponsor, I think, of the Guitar Center Drum Festival.
Oh, wow.
And we had dudes that kept like wanting to play our stuff after they won. And they were only supposed to pick the companies who were actually sponsors, but they kept coming to us. And I was like, well, what are we going to do? They want to play our stuff. And like, these guys they're killing. They're doing a great job. Like, and so eventually I just realized like, wow, there's a lot of really eager and awesome drummers that are making it this far, and it'd be great to like tell them hello and good luck, and, you know, maybe send them a little something to make them excited about drumming.
Yeah,
So,
wow. And I appreciated that. I was like, wow, this is super nice. And I love that cymbal too. One of my favorites.
was it extra dry or?
Yeah, extra dry. I think it was an 18.
Sounds right. Yeah, that's awesome. Well, I mean, dude, you know, from some people who are listening to this, if there's any younger drummers listening to this, they might be like, GC Drum Off, I think I've seen some videos. Isn't that the, you know, where Eric and Proto stood up like on his hands on the throne? And it's so like, it's been so long, it seems like, since there was an actual GC Drum Off that, I mean, it's been at least before COVID.
For sure.
I feel like some people don't even know what it was all about, but like for you with the Drum Off, did anything come from that experience for you that somehow, you know, informed the drummer that you are today professionally? Did it teach you anything, or was it just like something you just had to do and get it out of your system?
Well, it's really funny, actually. The only reason I started doing the Drum Off the year I went to the finals was the U.S. Postal Service lost my snare drum after my last year at Berklee. And I was like, I need a new snare drum, but I don't have any money. So let me enter the Drum Off. And I knew one of the rounds, if you won, you got a snare drum. So I'm like, I'm getting a snare drum. So that's a little trivia. That's why I did the Drum Off that year I went to the finals. But for me, the Drum Off was amazing in general because every year I wanted to learn something new to bring to my routine or whatever. And not just to be flashy for the Drum Off, but to be practical in my musical life. So I think one year I learned how to do a clave in 5 on my left foot while soloing over that. That's practical. Another year, what did I do? I think I developed more of the singles between the hands and the feet. That was one thing. It's just every year trying to add something new that's not just for showmanship or to win the contest, but also that's going to make you a better drummer for years to come.
How many times did you go to the finals in LA?
Only one time.
Okay.
Only one time, yeah.
But like you would
awesome.
make it to a certain, like other times. How many times overall did you enter?
Let's see. A few times. Maybe 4 or 5 times.
Wow.
Yeah, man. It was a journey. It was so much fun, though.
Was all that, was it split between like the St. Louis area and then Boston, or did it all happen
Exactly.
while you were at Berklee? Okay, got it.
It was, it started in St. Louis, and then I did it a couple of times in Boston. And the year I went to the finals I started in St. Louis, yeah.
Was there anybody that you met from the Drum Off, drummer-wise, that you stay in touch with to this day?
Ooh, only through Instagram. Like I know one of the guys. Oh yeah, Forrest, Meinl guy.
Mm-hmm.
I follow him on Instagram still. And even though we weren't in the same Drum Off class, JP, another Meinl guy, we went to school together.
Dude,
though, so yeah.
But yeah, you guys went to school together, and now you live like, well, maybe not down the street from each other, but you're in the same borough.
Yeah, we're in Brooklyn. There you go. Actually, I think he's in Queens though.
You know, I think he's in I don't know where this lies, but I think it's technically like Long Island City or something like that.
Yeah.
Wherever that is. I assume
know
it's
where
on
that
Long
is, yeah.
Island.
Yeah, but we're close enough.
Yeah, I mean, I know it's a huge city and you guys have your own schedules, but do you ever see each other?
No, I haven't seen him in years. I think we might get together and do something though for his website or something in the coming months. So I'm excited for that. But I haven't seen him in person in a minute.
Well, his hair is really long, and he looks like a mountain man. And but same old JP, just happy, smart, awesome, cool dude.
Yeah, man, he's awesome.
Well, so you said a couple of things that made me think about some other questions I had for you. So you were talking about the practical nature of why you even entered the drum off in the first place, which is to get the snare drum to replace the stolen one. And then you were talking about using the drum off to learn some new things to use. So when you practice today, in this day and age, do you have a structure when you're practicing? Are you super practical about that? Or is it more just like free time on the kit?
Yeah, so I go through phases. Sometimes it's very regimented. Like I'll be working out of a book, like 4-way coordination or stick control. And I have a goal in mind, like baby steps to achieve usually some sort of independence, because that's my independence is like the S tier of drumming abilities to me. But also I'll kind of gauge how I am or where I am if I'm on tour with somebody and I'm noticing, last night the solo section was my drum solo was kind of weird. The open drum solo to set up this song wasn't really hitting the way I wanted to. So let me just practice playing open drum solos. So I go between regimented with the book and slowing everything down and just kind of, stream of consciousness drum solo. But it's with a goal in mind too. Like I'll have a song in mind that I'm setting up. Like, play an open drum solo to the jazz tune Oleo. And I'll have to set it up and I'll go through a couple of takes of it. And I'm not really judging each one. I'm just trying to get as many different quality takes as possible to build that muscle memory up and the creative juices. So when I hit the bandstand, an open drum solo doesn't scare me. It doesn't scare me. It hasn't really scared me, but I want to be prepared.
Well, so, I've watched solos, like your clips on Instagram, there'll be some clips where you're soloing, and I think your most recent one, you're soloing, and there's a dude on the bandstand, one of your bandmates, he's watching you. And so it's always kind of struck me as funny that when drummers take a solo, everybody else just has to kind of stop and watch. And and drummers, like when other people take solo, drummers are usually keeping some form of accompaniment. I mean, it could be super soft and whisper quiet, but they're still maybe moving the brushes around, tapping the cymbals, something like that. But what I thought was funny was that like all these dudes have to turn and watch, and maybe their brain is elsewhere. I assume it's not, because they've got to keep an idea of like when to come back in, but like they have to look like they're into it and look approving. Have you ever seen a dude on stage, like a bandmate, who looked like he just couldn't give a rat's ass about your drum solo, maybe even kind of disapproved of it?
Oh my God, that is amazing. I want that to happen now for the rest of my life. I want to see that. I haven't seen that on the bandstand, but you reminded me of one of my final jury auditions at Berklee. It wasn't an audition, it was more like for my final. And I was playing with the band. I got together a group of my friends and we played. And the guy was like falling asleep during our performance. And I had a drum solo coming up. And I'm like, I'm going to wake this dude up with this drum solo. So I played some like weird avant-garde drum solo, but with crazy loud hits. But it was random. So you never knew when it was going to come. And he woke up, obviously. And I'm like, yeah, don't ever fall asleep during one of our performances again. So that's the only time where something like that has happened.
Yeah, I was just curious. I mean, everybody, like, they're all smiles, like, oh, isn't that cool what he's playing? Like, wow, man, he's just in the zone. And they're really giving these looks of like, that's deep, dude. But if, like, I ever wonder if you could read minds, if somebody on the inside is just like, what the hell is he doing, man? God, I'm so tired of hearing that.
That's I got to do some research on that. That has to happen somewhere.
I'm sure it does. I'm sure it has to happen. But but the cool thing is, as a drummer, you generally don't have to stop and look interested at someone else's solo. You just got to focus on keeping some polite time while they're doing their thing, right?
That is true. Yeah.
Yeah, nice. That's good. So we don't have to fake it.
We don't have to fake it. Sometimes, though, it's weird. Like if you're playing with a group and they're doing a solo tune, usually they let the band, leave and go. But sometimes if the band is staying, while an artist is doing their solo thing, you do kind of, I mean, it would make sense for the show aspect of it for you to look interested and smile and nod your head. So I do kind of experience a little bit about, I experience a little bit what the other instruments play. I mean, what they experience when we take a solo. If an artist is doing a solo and I'm stuck on stage and I have to look like, oh yeah, this is awesome, which it is. All the artists I play for, just letting everybody know it's amazing. So when you see me smiling, it's true. It's real. It's genuine.
You talked about Berklee, and you went there. You graduated, correct?
Correct.
Yeah. So we've got plenty of artists who've gone to Berklee. Many have graduated. If you haven't, and I've always talked about this because everybody always has a bit of a different answer, and I'm always curious. Having been up there myself to hang with the late great Ralph Peterson when he was there, and just get to soak up the vibe of the students, and I met some of the different teachers in the drum department. I'm curious, like, what did going to Berklee do for you as a drummer? What did you kind of warp speed a certain skill set while you were there, or what happened for you?
Yeah, a lot of people have different answers, but Berklee for me was so amazing and incredible. Just the people I met there, I'm still in touch with today, and a lot of the success I have in New York comes from knowing people at Berklee. Like, it's a crazy thing. And when I was there, I studied mostly jazz because I felt like that was the weakest part of my game. So all my teachers were jazz focused, and I really tried to work on my brushwork and getting some of the fundamentals of soloing and all that stuff. But the connections, that's what everybody says about Berklee. The connections are immaculate. A lot of the people on the scene now in New York and LA and Nashville have some tie to Berklee, even if they didn't go there. So just having that connection and common schooling experience with a lot of musicians on the scene has helped immensely. I mean, the first apartment I moved to, when I moved to New York, it was all Berklee guys. Ian Barnett, actually a fellow Meinl guy, and a couple other guys from Berklee. We just were in a house, and one of my roommates, Zach Mullings, Killing drummer, he told me to go to this jam session, and I met people at the jam session, and from that moment on, I kind of got ingrained in the scene of New York, and I've gotten so many gigs. And it's crazy because if I never went to Berklee, I never would have known anybody that lived in New York enough to come move there and start this journey. So yeah, I owe a lot to Berklee College of Music.
Well, so I was going to ask you what living in New York City has done for your career specifically. Is there any way to sort of set aside it doesn't have to be set aside completely, but okay, so you have a lot of connections in New York from Berklee. It sounds like it was a huge part of being there, but okay, now you're there, you've got these connections. What specifically has living in the city done for your career? Have you met artists there that you've ended up touring with or recording with, or what's happened?
Yeah, so New York, everything is different now in the social media age. But for me, New York, I mean, it's the center of all art for me. It's my favorite city in the whole world. And I've been to a whole lot of cities.
What's your second favorite city?
Oh, my second favorite. Maybe Athens. I was only there for one night, so I can't really, but it was amazing. It looked like I was in like the movie Hercules. It was crazy. Wow. Yeah.
One night and it already became your second favorite city. That's huge.
Exactly. Well, I've been wanting to go there since I was a kid, so they kind of have an advantage. But yeah, Athens is awesome.
Sorry, but I got you off the path. You were talking about what it's done for you.
Yeah. So it's kind of crazy. I think New York is a place where everything is in a pinch. That's where its real value shows up. Like somebody calls you, Jharis, man, there's a studio session with Kelly Clarkson or something. We need somebody tomorrow. Can you make it? Like, oh yeah, I can make it. I'm in Brooklyn. I'll be there tomorrow. That doesn't happen if I'm in St. Louis, right? Unfortunately, like Kelly Clarkson isn't in St. Louis recording her next album. and they need a drummer. Everything happens in New York. It's those type of instances and circumstances that New York and LA, I guess, that's where it's going to happen. Like I played on Saturday Night Live and the Tonight Show. It was all last minute. Like, hey, we need a drummer for this or a drummer for that in New York City that can make this last minute rehearsal or last minute gig. And that's where I think New York takes the cake.
Now, you mentioned, you said everything's different because of social media. So how does that affect, what were you thinking of when you mentioned that in relation to my question about New York?
Yeah, so I was thinking of how I got the majority of my gigs and a little bit of New York, but everybody is like, oh, send me their Instagram. So all the messages, the artist I play for now, Jose James, he found me on Instagram, got recommended by Eric Harlan, which is crazy because I didn't even know Eric Harlan knew who I was. So that was amazing. Ani DeFranco's manager found me on Instagram. Solange found me on Instagram. My Brightest Diamond found everybody that I've played for pretty much has found me on Instagram. So it's really amazing.
That is amazing. Matt, do you know Madden Class?
Yeah, oh, for sure. I don't know her, but I'm a fan.
Okay, you know who she is. Yeah, so I just did a podcast with Madden that we released a couple of weeks ago, and she literally said the same thing. That pretty much everything she's had gig-wise almost has come through Instagram. And
oh, crazy.
So like on one hand, it makes me feel absolutely great for all the people that handle their social media well. Mm-hmm. It just makes me want to cry for all the jackasses out there that, you know, treat it like it's like some place to set off fireworks, you know, amongst human beings. They're
messing up. They don't know, man. People look at all that. I saw Robert Glasper made a video maybe a year or two ago saying if you're a musician and your page isn't all of you playing music or like something to do with your art, you're really messing up. Like, don't ever ask me for a gig and I go to your Instagram and it's you like saying some crazy stuff or posting anything that doesn't have to do with music. That doesn't make sense. So yeah, if you can do it right, how it should be, you know, I'm a drummer. So my Instagram is literally, I don't think I have one picture on my Instagram. It's all drumming videos.
I mean, dude, it's your modern day, like, maybe not resume because it doesn't have a list of all the artists you've played for. Maybe in the text of each post you're saying where you are and what you're doing, but it's just kind of like, it's just sort of like, I don't even know, a calling card for your abilities. People just get to see you play and they're like, oh, this guy's got it. This is exactly what I'm looking for.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, I was talking about that in the Madden interview too, where I was saying it drives me nuts sometimes when I see artists drummers that want to become, you know, a cymbal artist, a vinyl cymbal artist, and they'll send me their info. So I'll immediately go to their Instagram page right away, and I'll see like 10 pictures of plates of food before I even get to like one drumming picture or drumming video. It's like, oh, dude. And that's the like easygoing version of it. Sometimes I'll see like 10 posts of politics and then I see something drumming wise. It's like, dude, you can have your own account, like your own account just for your friends back home and your family. But where you guys talk all that trash, but like here, just keep the music.
Exactly, man. Oh my goodness.
Well, you do a good job on your page because you're right. It's nothing but you playing drums, just nonstop.
Yeah, because if I wasn't a musician, nobody would ever hear of me. I wouldn't have any social media. I originally started it because, my friends, Corbin and Joe, were like, Jharis, you need to get an Instagram right now and just start posting videos, like a couple years ago, 2016 or something. And yeah, I was just like, oh, let me post videos of cool ideas. And that's all it was. I never intended on posting any of my opinions or, you know, plates of food. I eat my food. I don't take pictures of it. And
dude, what a weird Western society thing,
bro. It's so weird. No shade to anybody that does that, but yeah.
No, but no shame, and there's nothing wrong with it. I mean, it could be a celebration of people could be grateful for the blessings that they have been bestowed upon them or whatever. But it's like something about it also seems a little gluttonous.
Yeah, it's very, very strange to me.
Yeah, no, I think so. Especially when it's got a weird coloring. It's like, dude, didn't you use like the food filter?
Yeah, it's like what are we turning into? I don't know.
Yeah, that's hilarious. Well, okay, so now I need to reconcile two things here. So number one, you said being in New York, being in this spot where things happen because you wouldn't get called for a Kelly Clarkson record in St. Louis because she's not there recording. At the same time, you've also said that you had all these gigs that came from being on Instagram. So my question, theoretically speaking, for you is, could you be sitting in St. Louis and posting all of this content and get gigs from it, even if you like and not be in New York City?
That is a great question. I think the answer is yes. But for my situation, I got started. I think the first gig that kind of got me on the radar with a lot of these other artists was My Brightest Diamond. And I got that gig through, who did I get it? Oh, through Lenny Reese, like one of my favorite drummers, one of my best friends. And I was in New York, so I would never have gotten that opportunity had I not gone to his jam session and met him and got in contact with all of those guys. So I think I needed that jumping off point, but now I really don't think I need to live in New York. But I'm just here because, like I said, it's my favorite city. But for all the drummers out there, musicians out there that either can't afford to move to New York or have no desire to, it's definitely possible to just be in Webster Groves, Missouri, like I was in your parents' basement, making videos, obviously practicing a lot. But you have to do a little more leg work, I think, in that instance, because you're not interacting with a lot of musicians on the scene. So you have to really make your online persona, I don't know, you have to push it a lot more than I had to even get to the point where somebody says, oh, check out so-and-so's Instagram, they're really good. Whereas I'm in New York, so I meet people at jam sessions, and then it comes from, oh, I heard him play live. Now let me look at his Instagram. Oh, he's pretty good. Let me recommend him to this person or that person, this artist or that artist. So you have to do maybe a lot more legwork on the pushing content, which I hate that word when it comes to art. But you have to do that a lot more legwork on the internet side. Whereas being in New York, you can kind of split your time with the social media and in real life, meet and greets and, interactions.
Yeah. Well, you mentioned, now this is the second time I brought her up, but you mentioned Kelly Clarkson, so it made me think of something. To my way of seeing things from the outside looking in, you seem like a super adventurous musician. You're like willing to play with many different types of artists, and so it's made me wonder, has there been an artist that you played with that required you having to familiarize yourself with a style that you weren't totally comfortable with? And if so, how'd you get yourself up to speed quickly?
Yes. So last year I played with this band called Sleigh Bells. Amazing band. It's a duo. And my friend Kate I think she recommended me. But it's like a double bass gig. And I've never played a double kick gig in my life. But I've always wanted to. So something happened where their drummer dropped out. And my friend Kate recommended me to Derek and Alexis. And I had 2 weeks or something to learn the music. And she was like, oh, you do like double kick stuff, right? And I was like, oh, yeah, I'll do that.
Yeah, sure, of course.
And she sent me the music. And I was like, oh, this music is amazing. So, and I talked on the phone with Derek, and, he explained a lot of the ins and outs of what they were looking to accomplish. And I'm like, bro, I'm totally down. So as soon as I got off the phone, I went to the practice room. And every day it was like nighttime. I would go in at like 9 and I would go over the set twice, go to the gym at like 3 a.m, then come home, then do the exact same thing every day for 2 weeks. So I was going over the set a lot. And before I would do that, I would, do my little warm-ups and try to learn how to play double kick at the same time. So it was really crazy. But one of the most amazing experiences, because I feel like I had a crash course in learning double kick. And obviously now I can play. I'm still not, I'm not amazing like Virgil Donati or something, but I have so much more to go. But if it wasn't for that gig, I would have procrastinated for so long, this double kick journey. But that gig, pretending like I knew how to play it before I actually did, helped me a lot.
Well, you said you went that night to the rehearsal space and started working on it. So did you happen to have a second kick handy or a double pedal or what?
Yeah, I have a double pedal. So yeah, luckily I was prepared for that, and it just came at the right time. But it was so crazy because I had to learn how to, man, I watched so many videos of different people like, oh, so here's how you use your ankle and your toe or whatever. And I was like, oh man, there was a moment where I'm like, bro, I'm going to crash and burn on this gig like crazy. But then I found something out, and it, it worked for that tour.
Was your left leg tired when you first started?
That was the thing. My left leg, it wasn't like it was tired. It was just, I just felt so uncoordinated. It was so weak. I was like, bro, I do hi-hat stuff all the time. But for some reason, moving into the kick drum pedal changed my whole feeling. And it was so weird. It was so weak for the longest time. And it's gotten stronger, but I need much more practice.
Did it mess with your hi-hat pedal placement when you had to set your left pedal from your bass drum for the second beater up next to it?
Yeah. Oh, well, so it wasn't, I didn't have two bass drums.
No. I mean, like, for instance...
Oh, you mean, yeah. Just having the double kick
Did it
pedal
push your
right
hi-hat out a little more to the left?
Yes, to the left. Yes. And that messed me up, too. I was like, oh, no, I'm not used to this gap.
Dude,
between...
Well, people always think I'm nuts when they've sat down at my kit, because that really bothered me years ago, having that hi-hat out farther, because it felt like my right arm was then reaching more unnaturally across my chest.
Yeah.
And so I just said, screw this, and I just took my left pedal from like my other kick sound by the beater, and then I just put it I put it on the outside of the hi-hat stand and brought the hi-hat stand in just a little bit more.
Oh, wow.
And to some people who've played double bass a lot, they think this is all wrong. But to me, it seemed ergonomically even better, because like the hat was even closer and it just felt a lot more efficient. But anyway,
I didn't even think about that. That's amazing. But I have a second hi-hat on my left side, so that's why I can't really do that.
Okay, yeah.
Figure out something.
Well, and so one more question about this double bass thing. Now, I take it wasn't metal, because you were talking about like Virgil. So was it more of just like what kind of music was it?
Yeah, I'm terrible at describing genres, but it had some moments. Yeah, it wasn't like intricate metal, or else I couldn't have done that. But is it called, I don't know if it's called noise pop. I don't know. The listeners just have to look up Slave.
That sounds like a New York City term.
Exactly. Somebody at Spotify made up a genre. I was like, oh yeah.
But it had some intricate stuff going on, which required a second leg on the kick.
Exactly. Yeah. The one of the guys in the band, Derek, he programs these crazy drums. His drum beats are actually like super, super dope. So yeah, there's some sections where I'm blasting away, and it's great.
Yeah, you mentioned him coming up with cool drum parts. I love it when a musician who's not necessarily a dedicated drummer will program drums. There's a lot of metal dudes that probably hate it. In fact, I know there are, because I've talked to plenty of them. They're like, dude, I can't even, it's not even humanly possible what this guitar player's programmed for me to play. But for the most part, not just talking about crazy metal guys, like, it's neat when another musician will write drum parts, because they may think of something that us drummers would never even have thought of. So it can be really fun to learn those kinds of parts.
Oh, 100%. I mean, Jay Dilla isn't a drummer, but his drum beats have now infiltrated all the young drummers in hip hop.
They've become iconic.
Iconic. But on that other end of the spectrum, that means us as drummers, we should write more music, because we're going to come up with crazy things. Like, I mean, Tony Williams composed and wrote like lavish pieces. And I'm sure people in his band are like, wow, I would never have thought to play it like this, or I would have never have thought to add that harmony or that bass note. So it goes both ways.
Absolutely, it does. Yeah, I mean, and probably the guy that like blew the doors off of that in the most mainstream way over the last, I don't know, 30 years or so would have to have been Dave Grohl. People are like, wait, what? What did he just do?
Oh yeah, oh yeah, yeah. I saw Foo Fighters for the first time a couple weeks ago. I was on tour. We played in Chicago at the Riot Fest, and they closed out the festival. And I was so happy just seeing Dave Grohl. It was awesome.
Yeah, and you got to see Josh Freese on drums with him.
Yeah, that was my first time seeing him perform with them. It was awesome.
Dude, first time I ever saw that guy play live was when he was playing with the band A Perfect Circle, and that's got Maynard, the singer from Tool, in that band.
Oh, nice.
And dude, like I understood at that point why Josh at that time was just this king of the recording scene in Los Angeles, because everything he played was just this same velocity, but not like trigger velocity. He just had this control the way he played, that the volume of every hit was so clean and consistent. It was ridiculous. I'd never heard anything like that before or since. The guy's killer drummer.
Yeah, incredible.
We're talking about gigs. Do you audition for gigs ever, or is it at this point it's all word of mouth and people just hit you up like, hey man, so-and-so told me you were a cool guy and a great drummer. That's enough for me. If he says you're good. Come on down. We need you. Or do you still have to do like, cattle call auditions for stuff?
Yeah, I'd never been much of an audition guy, but actually that gig I told you about with the double kick, I did have to send them a video of me playing to their songs before they were really like, yeah, this guy can play the music. Which is funny because I had to send them the video, obviously, at the beginning of that 2-week journey of me trying to learn how to play double kick. So I had to like kind of finagle, like muscle through some of these blast beats, which was probably detrimental to my left foot, but I obviously did a good enough job that they, let me be in their band for that tour. But that's really the only audition I've ever done for one of these groups. A lot of artists kind of, I don't know, they trust you for that first run. They trust that it's not going to be a disaster. At least with Jose James, I didn't. Oh, actually, no. I did have an audition for him. It was like an impromptu, let's get together. It was first week of March 2020. Like, let's get together and play with the band and see what the vibe is. That's like the jazz audition. Let's see what the vibe, let's see if we have a vibe. Everybody in jazz is cool.
Right, they make it sound casual, but it's like you're under the microscope.
Exactly. Man, let's just hang, bro. And I'm like, all right, cool. Meanwhile, they're judging every single fill. But so I did audition for Jose, got the gig, and then obviously the pandemic happened, and then we stopped. But yeah, so I guess I do audition, but it's not like one of those like a movie part audition where I go in with a bunch of drummers. I would not like to do that. I don't ever want to do that.
How's your chart reading skills?
Oh man, you just reminded me of a story. My chart reading skills is all right. I was definitely way better in high school because that's the last time I actually did chart reading a couple times a week, every week, in jazz band. But
you didn't do that at Berklee?
No, I wasn't in a big band at Berklee. At Berklee, they just give you a chart of the melody, and then you kind of read along with the melody and hit random hits that you want to embellish. But I didn't do big band because I don't like big band drumming at all. But I had to last minute sub for a Broadway gig for my friend. Somebody got COVID, so I show up, and he's been telling me, it's super easy, you'll get it. So I show up, and there's like 15 songs, 15 charts. And I'm like, oh no, this is kind of crazy. And I get why he said it would be easy, because once you get into it, it's very easy. But to have to legitimately sight read on the gig of a Broadway show, for your first ever Broadway show, by the way, it was terrifying. I was messing up on simple hits that I know how to read since like the 6th grade, because like so much nervousness was in me. But I think it wasn't that bad. But to me,
God, I'm nervous just listening to you tell me, man. This sucks.
Man, it was. And afterwards, I called him. I was like, bro, don't ever do that to me again. And he's like, oh, I thought you were listening to the music beforehand. I was like, no, bro.
Did you get any? Did you get like a stink eye from the conductor or anything?
Yeah. So I come in, and she sends me the music, and she's like, yeah. So have you heard this stuff? And I was like, nah. And she was like, oh, she gave me that face. And I was like, oh, it's going to be cool. So we rehearsed a little bit. But so the very first entrance, I'm not used to Broadway, so they have like cues from the actors. And so I would hear a cue, and then the click starts off, but they give you 3-4 instead of 1, 2, 3, 4. And I didn't know that. So the very first hit, I mess up. And it's a simple like 8th note hit. And I look at her, and she's just like, this is going to be terrible. And I see on her face, she just is shaking her head. And I was like, oh, no, I'm not terrible. I'm a good drummer. Please just believe me. But yeah, she gave me a couple of faces throughout the night.
Was she cool at the end of it? Or did she just like avoid you altogether?
She wasn't mad, but she wasn't like, yeah, this is great.
And you probably just got out of there as fast as you could.
Bro, I was going so fast. Well, actually, I went downstairs to talk to the actors in the play. I was like, look, I'm sorry for what you just heard. I'm sorry for what I did, but, next time it's going to be better. But they're like, oh, it's cool. Don't worry about it. And I was like, all right, bye.
Was there a next time?
There was not a next time. I wanted there to be a next time, but the play was ending in a couple of weeks, so...
I love your optimism, though. Next time, it's going to be great.
Yeah, that's what I say when I play a terrible gig. I'm like, look, bro, I got you next time. Don't worry about it.
Yeah. Man, I got just a couple more questions for you. Are there times when you walk away from the drums for a few days at all? Like to kind of reignite the creative juices?
Oh, yeah. Most definitely. I remember when I was in high school, I spent a lot of time away from the drums. I went through a little slump. But I say away from the drums, but it's not, I was still going to band class and doing marching band. So I still played, but in terms of practicing and sitting at my drum set and continuing that journey, yeah, I've taken multiple breaks. And it helps a lot. Obviously, you need to clear your head from things. But it still goes on in my head. Like I think of drum beats, or I'm watching crazy videos of drummers still. I just may not apply it right at that moment to my drum set and go practice it.
Well, there's different ways of practicing.
Exactly.
And listening is a form of practicing. You don't have to literally be moving your body. You could be taking in, like you said, you'd be watching crazy videos, listening to music, and that is still assimilating, and it's going to come out when you sit down at the kit the next time.
100%. Yeah, and watching movies, watching documentaries, like all that stuff helps. You can move that energy into what you're trying to do on the drum set. But
you mentioned
your hands will
go ahead.
Your hands will suffer, though. I will say that. No matter what, every time you come back, I'm like, oh man, my hands are much slower now. So you got to kind of find a way to stay away maybe for a little bit, but still do your hand warm-ups. That's what I would recommend.
So you mentioned high school as being, you were like, oh yeah, man, I remember in high school, but I'm talking about like today. Will you come home from a tour or something, or maybe you come home from a tour, you get to the practice room, you shed for a few days, and then will you take like a day and just do nothing but play video games, or you know? And then,
yes, 100%.
Okay.
I'm a huge video game guy. I want to start streaming. Side note, I want to start streaming video games. But yeah, I take a lot of breaks because touring is very exhausting. And it depends. Like doing an exhausting tour, like with Jose James, is very creatively exhausting in a good way. But I feel like after each tour, like I really need a break. But with someone like the Ani DeFranco tour, that's more I'm playing in feel and supporting the music, her amazing music. So afterwards, I'm like, oh, I'm ready to kind of rage and bash out. So I'll go to the practice room immediately after a tour like that to kind of, show myself I still got the chops,
Yeah,
it just depends.
You mentioned Ani, and I'd kind of forgotten that you had been on tour with her. I get the feeling that when you play shows with an artist like her, that the entire crowd is just celebrating the fact that they're there at her show watching her play. Like, she has such a devoted fan base. I imagine it's like a huge party, but not party like fire trucks, cocaine, strippers. I'm talking more like party, like just everybody's like almost like the audience is almost crying. They're so happy to be there.
Yes, 100%. I had never seen, her audiences are so amazing. And just the whole time, just yelling and screaming and being happy, singing all the songs. She'll start off a song and they already know what it is. Looking out into the crowd and seeing, people mouth the words is really a beautiful sight for sure. Yeah,
I bet. Well, I got one more question for you, dude. Here is your chance to do massive shameless self-promotion. So you've got an album that's coming out next year. What's the story with that?
Yes, I do. I have an album. We just finished mixing it, I think, a couple of days ago. It's called Sometimes Late at Night. And we're looking for, I think, February 9th is the release date. But, it's me on drums and a little bit of vocals. We're going to see how that goes. And my friend Big Yuki on synths and synth bass and everything. And it's just an album kind of dedicated to my ex-girlfriend, the classic love song album. And it features Jose James, like my big brother, and Tali is on there, his label boss. And man, we just recorded it. I think we recorded it last year, actually. And it should be kind of fun. I think the drummer's going to like it because I play some, cool drum beats. But it's also melodically, I think, it's not just like, I'm playing over a bunch of vamps and unlistenable, kind of outside of the drum aspect, unlistenable. I want people, normal civilians, to enjoy this music too. So, we'll see. It should be fun.
Where can people find it?
It's going to be on all the streaming services. I think we're going to do some vinyl. I'm not sure. And also the cover looks awesome. It was shot by Jeanette Beckman, a legendary photographer in New York. And just look out for that. It's going to be cool.
And the album will be under your name?
Under my name, my very first one.
And did you just tell me the title of the record and I totally spaced?
Yeah, it's called Sometimes Late at Night.
Yeah, sorry.
It's all good, man.
It's going to be on the streaming services and there possibly will be vinyl. Is there a place for people to support and pay for it as a download?
That's a great question. I'm assuming it's going to be on Bandcamp too. We're just kind of in the process of figuring all that stuff out. But I'll post about it soon. And I think we're having a release show in New York sometime in February. So the wheels are turning.
Nice. Good for you, man. Is it your first album?
Yeah, my first album. Yep.
Congratulations.
Oh, thanks, man. Appreciate it.
Well, dude, thank you so much for being a good sport and answering all my, off-the-wall silly questions. And it's always a pleasure to speak with you.
Oh, yeah, man. Chris, thanks for having me, bro.
Thanks for listening to Meinl Radio. If you liked what you've heard, please remember to subscribe to the podcast so you don't miss an episode. Give us a rating as well on Apple Podcasts, if that's what you're listening to this on. Also, go to meinlsymbols.com or go to meinlstickandbrush.com or go to both of them and sign up for our email newsletters to keep up with everything that's going on in our Meinl world. Thanks. Take care.